My father died tragically young at 50, and I always felt he died of a broken heart. He never knew who his parents were, he didn't know where he came from, and I was determined to find that out for him. Brief Encounter is one of the greatest love stories ever told, and this year it celebrates its 80th anniversary. But we want to tell you about one of the greatest love stories never told. Today we're at the Heritage Centre in Carnforth, which is the home for the most iconic David Lean film, Brief Encounter.
The film is about an ultimately doomed love affair between a suburban housewife, played by Celia Johnson, and a married doctor, played by Trevor Howard. But they both realise that they can't be together and the affair is soon over.
The endlessly patient and very repressed English husband of the suburban housewife is played by Cyril Raymond. In real life, there lies another story because he had an affair with an actress and she had an illegitimate child, and that child was my father. My mother gave me an old tin box containing his birth certificate and his adoption papers, and it started from there. And over the years, I worked with various people to piece together his life and that of his parents.
I think what is perhaps most amazing about this story is that your daughter Sedona, my friend, is an actor.
She made her debut performance on the stage at the Theatre Royal Bath at the age of 11, and it turned out that both her great-grandparents had performed there as well.
We really want this documentary to capture a moment in history and really just to share this powerful story with generations to come.
Timing is everything, and I now understand that we are meant to be making this film to mark the 80th anniversary of the iconic film Brief Encounter.
Hello everybody, thank you for joining us. This is the Briefest Encounters pre-screening event, and you've been invited because you supported us on Indiegogo. We're so grateful for all of your donations, because without them we really would not have been able to do this project. We're going to be accepting questions throughout the screening as well, so if you want to type them in the comments section, and then we will collate them, and then at the end we will go through them. But first of all, we thought we should probably introduce ourselves and who we are. So Jo, who are you?
I'm Joanna Cross, and a little bit about my background. I've been a journalist for more decades than I care to mention, actually. But I started in local newspapers, went into radio, and ended up in television. And eventually moved to the Southwest, well over 25 years ago. And I was working as a Crime Stoppers reporter at ITV and a voice coach, and I've been freelance basically ever since.
And I'm Luke Taylor, and I'm Bath born and bred. Decided to stay in Bath for university, going back nearly 14 years now. And it was whilst I was at university that I actually met Joanna. And I worked at the theatre in Bath, the Egg Theatre, and whilst I was there, I met Sedona, who is Jo's daughter. And she told me this incredible story about Briefest Encounters and her ancestors, and introduced me to Jo. And that was when we first met. So Jo and I actually met through this story.
We did, and Luke then you made a student film about my grandmother, and which was really special and really sort of got us into the whole project. It was a very big starting point.
Yeah, it was. And at the time, we were discussing this earlier, Sedona and I were in love with Janet, and we really wanted to share Janet's story. And Cyril hadn't really been brought into the spotlight at that point. So it was a great little project to get the ball rolling with this. But for you, it started much further.
Yeah, I suppose it did. So we don't do any spoiler alerts today, but my father died not knowing who his parents were. And when he died at the age of 50, it was only after that my mother was actually told the true story about his birth parents, and she was given a box with his adoption papers in, which I sort of got by the time I moved to Bath. So I did know that he was adopted, and I did know about Cyril Raymond and Brief Encounter, but that was sort of about it until I really started going down the investigative route.
Yeah, and I think since meeting you, obviously you started writing the book, Briefest Encounters.
Yeah, well, actually what happened, when I was working as a Crime Stoppers reporter, there was Inspector Keith Jones was the press officer at Avon and Somerset Police, and he took up a hobby of genealogy, and like many people was really kind of engaged with the whole story and started to really look into the background, which was such a help. And so, you know, Keith really started on the genealogy side, and then I think the next bit was when we had my relative came along, didn't she, with more research?
Yeah, so over the last sort of 10 years, we've continued to research and do bits and bobs with this project, but it was more recently that two of Joe's distant relatives
made an appearance.
Yeah. So Lindsay, one of your cousins, on Janet's side of the family.
That's right, on Janet's side.
She lives in Vienna.
Yeah, she's a tour guide, but she's an incredible researcher. So the mountain of evidence, as it were, and historical records that she came up with has been so helpful, particularly for Janet's side of the story.
Yeah, and I think that for us was like a real push to let's do this, because we have basically all the information in front of us and all the research was there to really start sharing the story.
And interestingly, Keith had managed to research more Cyril Raymond's side of the story, and there was a real Bristol and Bath connection. In fact, the ITV studios in Bristol, there's a crematorium behind there and a graveyard, and my great-grandparents, Cyril's parents, who ran, was it the Queen's Hotel in
The Grand Hotel.
The Grand Hotel.
The Grand Hotel.
In Bristol, but they're buried there. So we've got so many there's so many relatives round and about the southwest.
And then a couple of years ago, Mary Davis got in touch with you. And yeah, tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so Mary lives in America, and thanks to Lindsay as well and some of the research there, we were all connected really through this initial research. And then she came over last summer and came to my house in Bath. And what was really special about it was, I think we were all delighted to meet real relatives in this story, but Sedona was actually performing in a play in London. So, you know, that synchronicity was extraordinary. So Mary and her friend Renee and us went to London to see Sedona perform. So again, the family coming together and that whole thing about being on the stage was very, very evident.
And I think another push for us and an amazing moment was when Mary brought with her things that belonged to Janet. And I don't want to spoil the story, but Mary's father ended up with some of Janet's things after she passed away. And you were reunited with them.
And a very important letter, you'll see that in the actual film. So that was extraordinary. And it's been interesting about the timing of this, because in a way I feel like I've held this story and I've been custodian of it, honestly, for about 40 years. It's sort of, you know, I'm a real doer and I'm a real finisher, and it was frustrating to think that nothing was really coming off. And a long time ago, really, I I was reunited with my grandfather's diaries and ended up on a Radio 4 programme with one of our interviewees in the programme, the lovely Helen Friel. So she's been a really significant part of that story. But I had gone to the British Film Institute and with a sort of book proposal, and they said, yes, wonderful, go away and write the book and make a film. Well, as a single parent of 3, that wasn't really a very likely scenario. But all these pieces have come together like a jigsaw. And then the journalist in me did realise that the 80th anniversary of Brief Encounter, which is next week, this was do or die. If we didn't make something now, we were going to lose the moment. So talk a bit about the funding or our attempts to get funding.
So we love what we do. So we were just willing to do this with nothing. But then we realised that we need to kind of ask for help. We looked down various funding avenues, from the National Lottery Fund to independent funding, and then realised that we kind of just need to do this ourselves. And that's where Indiegogo came in. So our first sort of step into making this was when we went to Carnforth and filmed the fundraising video, which you saw at the start. So, and then the filming just began whilst the fundraising was happening in the background.
And we're going to take you through some of the clips again, a reminder of the story, but I think we're sitting here a bit agog, really. How did it all come together? How has this happened? I do have to say that having somebody worked in mainstream for many years, it is probably some form of insanity for 2 people to try and make a 60-minute documentary entirely on their own.
Yeah.
I don't think we had any idea about what else might be involved, and we can talk a bit about that later. But suffice to say, the film is actually being accredited today, is that the right word?
Yeah. And tomorrow is a very special day for you anyway. But tomorrow we should receive the accreditation.
And also, that's on my late father's birthday. So all of it feels very special. So we know the film has been uploaded, it's being certified, whatever, or accredited. But shall we take... through the story.
Yeah, so our first, you should see a photograph now, of our first sort of part of the filming, and we went up to Denton in Yorkshire. So why were we there, Jo?
Now, Denton Hall, which, by the way, features in a film called The Coral, which is out in the cinemas now. So that rather grand stately home, surrounded by moorland and parkland and everything, was actually the home of my father's adopted grandmother, and so it's all very grand, very baronial. But I think for my dad, it was he was his spiritual home. He loved the moors, he loved animals, he loved being there, and so it was an important part of his childhood and his adulthood. It was somewhere that he went back to, and actually somewhere that he, after he died, we decided to have his ashes scattered, I think, across the moors, which felt really fitting. And then my mum, my late mother, organised, made out of Yorkshire stone, a beautiful headstone for him in St Helen's Church in Denton. So we went to film there and to go back to Denton Hall.
It was a really beautiful day, and the sun came out, and there were butterflies flying around the cemetery, and the church looked amazing. So yeah, visually it was great for me. And yeah, it was a really special time, I thought.
And as often happens with filming of any kind, as I know, that you don't necessarily film sequentially. So we ended up filming the end of, excuse me, the end of the film was our starting point. So in a funny kind of way, I look back and there was a lot of trust in that, because we didn't have a script written as such. We knew roughly what the film might look like, or the documentary, but I think we've been very guided and helped.
Yeah, we have. And then after that trip, you reconnected with Anthony Pratt.
Yeah. Now, Anthony Pratt, an absolutely lovely man who, in his own right, became quite well known or very well known, I think, as a production designer on all sorts of big movies. He was the nephew of Cyril Raymond through Cyril's marriage to Gillian Lind. All of this will become clearer, actually, in the film. But I think, to be fair, I met him many, many years ago, and he was probably very shocked and quite bewildered to find out that his beloved uncle had this estranged child that nobody knew about. And I did have some reluctance, didn't I, about whether we should go back and speak to Anthony because I wanted to be really sensitive about it. And then I found a letter he'd written me, you know, from those years ago, saying that, you know, he was very supportive actually. So we went to London, didn't we, to film with him?
We did, and he is such a lovely person. And what was really incredible was that he had photographs of Cyril that we'd never seen before, and he even had Cyril Raymond's original Brief Encounter shooting script, which was so special to see and to touch and to hold. But we have actually got a short clip that you can see now of our filming with Anthony.
Cyril Raymond was then a very popular theatre actor, and when he came onto the stage, the audience started to clap. I used to probably see him more than anyone, and in a way, I suppose he is like became a sort of father figure to me in a way, because I hadn't got that, and he was very, very nice to me.
So in that little clip, you would have heard him talk about what Cyril was like as a person. So that was really nice for us to hear, someone who actually knew him off stage and off screen.
And, you know, the fact that he sort of considered Cyril to be a bit of a father figure, it's been really comforting to know that what a lovely person Cyril was, and that really matters, because when you're going back and revisiting the story, as you will find out and imagine, some of Cyril's actions didn't necessarily put him in the best light, and it is good and reassuring to know that he was a really loved person, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. And yeah, it was just a really, really lovely time with Anthony, to film him, to learn more about him and his career and the influence that Cyril had on him. And then after that, our main focus was really pushing the Indiegogo campaign for a couple of months. And then we got back into filming on my birthday, and in September.
You're very young.
I'm very young. And we went to the Little Theatre Cinema in Bath and the Theatre Royal. So I think we'll play you the clip from there, and then we'll talk a bit about that after.
I think it's been a really special day. It's encapsulated the whole of the story for me, because this morning we were at the Little Cinema in Bath with Sedona, and we were watching footage of my father, and now here we are at the Theatre Royal in Bath. We've had the auditorium all afternoon to ourselves. I mean, it's been a privilege.
Yeah, I think it's been such a rare opportunity to capture elements of this amazing story in a place where your ancestors actually were. And to be in the cinema this morning was great too, because Brief Encounter would have been shown there. Your dad was really into cinema and theatre.
It's all been woven together, and I feel like today has really encapsulated the heart of this theatrical story. And I think also sitting on the stage and being able to talk to Sedona, going through the cuttings and things and realising, I mean, the story is sad, but there's even more tragic elements to it than perhaps I ever realised. So, you know, it's very much tinged with sadness, but the great thing is we are telling their story, finally.
I think as well, on a personal level, I feel like it's a full circle moment, because I worked next door in the Egg Theatre, met some really amazing people, including Sedona, Joe's daughter, who introduced me to this incredible story. I've lived in Bath my whole life. Joe and I worked together for 14 years in Bath, and for this story to have a place here in this city is really meaningful for us, I think.
And today's your birthday.
And I very rarely, never actually work on my birthday, but today was an exception because it's such a special project for Joe and I, and this place means a lot to me, and we're really looking forward to the coming weeks because we'll be filming again up in Carnforth. We're really grateful for all the donations people have given us, so please keep sharing and spreading the word. So our filming at the Little Theatre Cinema was the start of my birthday, bright and early, and we were given Screen 2 to go through Joe's father's adoption paper, but also to review his life on the big screen.
So we went with Sedona, or Sedona Rose is her acting name, because obviously she's carried on the thread of the theatrical side of the family. And yeah, amazing to have that venue actually. And we sat there and discussed the adoption. We're not going to tell you too much about that now, but it was wonderful, really, to be able to film the letters, the story behind it all, because it's so amazing. You wouldn't really necessarily believe it if you didn't see it there in print. So we had a good old chat there. And also, my dad, well, he was a great photographer and he loved his cine film. I think somewhere in the loft, I've got mountains of reel-to-reels. He loved being behind the camera, but actually, as we discovered, he also loved being in front of the camera. He loved acting, loved drama, but enjoyed being on the stage in many, many ways. So we were able to go through all the footage.
I think what was really special about that was that learning more about him, and that without really knowing where he came from, his parents were really a big part of his life. And then we went on to the Theatre Royal for the afternoon, and that was brilliant. We had the entire auditorium in the Theatre Royal for 4 hours to ourselves.
I mean, that in itself is a gift because, as you'll appreciate, there are plays on all the time. So luckily we went on that day, on the Monday, there wasn't a show coming in or they weren't rehearsing. That's quite rare. So I felt like maybe our Briefest family in spirit organised that because my grandfather and grandmother had performed on that stage many times, as indeed had Sedona. So it was fantastic to go back and to talk really about the theatrical lineage.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, behind the camera, it was such a beautiful space to capture, and we framed it beautifully. It all looked great, all well lit. So yeah, one of my favourite parts of the story was filming there.
And you'll see, just to have that backdrop just says everything about this story. And yeah, it was like bringing the family back centre stage all these generations later. We'd never met them, but here we were, very much descendants of that family. That's what you sort of find out about the story, all these synchronicities.
I think the great thing about documentary filmmaking is the revelation of certain things. And we had some artifacts to read on camera, but some of them hadn't, you didn't really know much about certain elements of those stories until the camera starts rolling. And I think in those moments we learnt more about some other people involved in the Briefest story.
We did. We won't do any spoiler alerts, but there was one quite shocking revelation, but there was just so much content really to be able to talk about. Janet's experience as a single parent back in the day, 1930, and everything that they must have gone through. It certainly took us back in time, didn't it?
It did, yeah. And talking of Janet, after we filmed at the Theatre Royal, a few weeks later we headed to Whitstable, and on our way we stopped off at Barham Crematorium where Janet's ashes were scattered.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was amazing to go back. Every location we went to, even if the day was grey and rainy, when we filmed, honestly, the sun came out. There was this beautiful dappled light. It felt like it was a real sign that we were meant to be telling their story. So Janet, she might have died a pauper, she might have had no headstone, but she had her ashes scattered alongside her theatrical family. And yes, that was great. And then, of course, we headed back to Whitstable, which has become a bit of a favourite haunt for all of us, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Where the family had a little cottage there, Pear Tree Cottage.
With a big pear tree in the front garden.
Very big pear tree.
And we did a bit of experimenting. We filmed on the seafront, very windy, but the sun was going down, the waves were lapping on the shore, and it was a very beautiful setting to sort of talk about and reminisce about, talk about Janet's life.
It was good. I've been there a few times. We've been there filming with you. And one of the things I just wanted to say that was so special, for my 60th, my birthday present was to go, we were able to get a holiday let at Pear Tree Cottage. And I went with my 3 children, Sky, American, Sedona, and my beautiful late dog, Dilla dog. And we spent the weekend in that cottage. And that was surreal. But what's more surreal to me is that it was just like this very small window of time that we were able to rent it, because when we looked at trying to go back and maybe stay there when we were filming, I think it was only a holiday let for about 2 months. So again, a window of opportunity to have actually lived in my family's house. And here we were going back and very much reflecting on what Janet's life was like in Whitstable, which wasn't quite as beautiful as the pictures suggest, really.
It was a short trip because on the way back we headed to Eastbourne and we discovered that Cyril had his ashes scattered at the crematorium there.
Again, interesting, there was no marker that he'd really ever lived. That's what was sort of extraordinary. So it's a whole conundrum about, you know, what somebody is in their life and the mark they leave when they die. Now, there's been no visible evidence of that, but here we are telling this really deep, rich theatrical story, and there's so much about them. So maybe the meant to be was the documentary to tell the story about these people.
Yeah, and then I think, yeah, as well, that Cyril was quite hard to find. His resting place was very hard for us to find. So I think we were glad to find it, but it was just quite a sad ending.
It was a tiny bit of cardboard with
Yeah.
his name on. I mean, that was shocking. And a few years ago, on our sort of many years of research, we did go to Ripe, where he'd lived in his little cottage there with his second wife, Gillian Lind. But there was something that was beautiful, but there was something hollow and bleak about the whole experience. It's like, what was it like for him? And we don't talk too much about this, but I do know that the last 10 years of his life, he couldn't act. And that's all he'd known. I mean, both he and Janet had been sort of child actors. And I don't think he had a very happy time. I think he probably had time to reflect on a lot of things living in Ripe. And maybe the fact there was only a tiny bit of cardboard to mark his death says a lot about his experience there in East Sussex.
And I think by this point in the filming process, we felt that we'd captured every element of the story that we needed to. So at this point, we went back up to Carnforth and filmed at the Brief Encounter refreshment room. And for this specific thing, we needed to piece the puzzle together.
Very difficult, as you can tell.
Piece the puzzle together. So over to you for that part.
Well, I'm glad that we did it that way round. We had to also think, one of the big things is how much of the film Brief Encounter could we use, and all the thing about copyright and rights, and Luke is an expert now in all of these things. I mean, he was so diligent and industrious about researching every single artefact that we've used. But we realised that we could use little aspects of the film, which you'll see on the big day. And so when we went back up there, it was really good to be able to pull the story together. And I felt like we had 4 columns, like 4 pillars of this story, start, middle and end, that felt really fitting. And it was absolutely right that we went back to Carnforth towards it was basically the end of the filming, because then we knew what we'd got.
Yeah.
And when we started out, we really didn't know sort of how it was going to unfold, did we?
No, and in some ways, when we first went there, we went in a way to film for this, but we ended up not doing that and filming the campaign video. So yeah, it's all such meant to be's and such synchronicities.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, so that's been really special, and I hope you'll think that, for those of you who can see it. And by the way, the film, we are going to be rolling it out. We'll talk about that later. But and then the next bit, slightly back to front again, was filming in Bath at the Central Library.
Yeah, so just when we thought we'd done it all, it dawned on us about the amazing story about Jo being reunited with her grandfather's diaries. So we had a really lovely day filming at Bath Central Library, and under a beautiful stained glass window. And yeah, we got to go through Cyril's diaries.
With a lovely woman, a paper engineer and illustrator called Helen Friel. And Helen and I had met many years ago on a Radio 4 programme, because she reunited me with Cyril's diaries, and I was on the programme with her and Lucy Fleming, who is the daughter of Celia Johnson, who's in Brief Encounter. And so almost 10 years later, there we are going through the diaries, and it was a very meaningful experience.
Yeah, to see his own handwriting, his thoughts on paper, the shows and things that he was in, and to like correlate them with historical facts, so we know that actually happened and this happened, was really good. So on to the premiere.
Yes.
Which is next week.
It has been a fairly terrifying and stressful experience, hasn't it? I mean, I think we're both, once that first screening is done, and I hope that I think the thing I really want is the story to land and to be meaningful for people. There has been one person that's seen this film, and that is Mason Pollock, who is the manager of the Picture House Cinema, the Little Theatre Cinema in Bath. And what we wanted to do was to have a screening on the big screen, but also so to see how it translated. But also we needed somebody who really didn't know the story, so that if there was any sort of gaping holes or things that didn't make sense, he could give us that feedback before we did the final edit.
Yeah, it was really helpful actually for his feedback, but also to see it on the big screen and to hear it, so that on the night I can sit back and actually kind of enjoy
You're not going to say
watching it
relax, are you?
and relax. But yeah, it was really helpful to do that. And there've been a few minor changes since that screening, but it's done. The film is done.
And it's been sent off. And then I think the thing to say to people, we realise that we've made a big thing about the Bath screenings. Now, we're obviously screening the premiere on the 80th anniversary of Brief Encounter. So we're going to show the film of Brief Encounter, followed by our documentary. And then there's going to be a Q&A, which is going to be facilitated by my oldest daughter, Sky. Sedona's obviously going to be on the panel with you and I. And I just have to say, another lovely moment was my son Merrick put together a beautiful poster, very simple but beautiful poster, which you will have seen. It's everywhere, isn't it, of Cyril and Janet. But it was put up outside the cinema, and that was just an amazing moment, really. We've done it, or we're doing it, or we're about to, it's about to happen.
It's real.
It's real. So we're going to do that, but should we just tell them a little bit about it's sold so well that they the little cinema said, come on, have 2 more screenings. Oh my God, okay. And just as we were finishing the final edits on Monday, they said that it looks like they want to have a West End Central screening of our film, so it'll be a double bill, and the Q&A, that'll be next year. Definitely one in Yorkshire at the York Picture House Cinema. So dates to be announced when we've got them. And then today I did an interview with Louise Brining, who's a Lancashire journalist who's really interested in the story, because we're going to go up to Carnforth, aren't we, with Sedona?
Yes. So next week, after the premiere, we will be travelling up to Carnforth again for a screening of Brief Encounter and Briefest Encounters at the railway station and the Heritage Centre.
Yeah, and Sedona Rose, has been asked to devise a piece of theatre which is going to go at the top and bottom of our documentary, which is obviously very Briefest Encounter related.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. I think that doing that with a bit of theatre is lovely and quite special. And then we'll be herring it down again to do our next screening on the Sunday. But there are definitely plans to do more. And this journalist today said, were we going to do other screenings? And we were even talking about hopefully one in Lancaster. So, yeah, watch this space. We will let you know.
We will. So we had collated some questions prior to this. So the first one is, what made you start filming Briefest Encounters?
And we sort of covered that, didn't we? I think we'd thought about it a lot. I'd had this thumbs up from the BFI. There were lots of signs along the way. But to be honest, the 80th anniversary did it. It's like, if we don't do this now, we're going to miss our opportunity. So that, I believe, was meant to happen like that. It just galvanised us. It was like, we had no choice, we're going to have to make it. And that's what we've done.
Yeah, we have. Don't know how, but we've done it.
Well, wait till you see the results. But I hope people like the results.
During the filming, what was the pivotal moment when everything clicked? We talked about this earlier, and we felt that was when we went back up to Carnforth to film the 4 columns of the documentary, because it made us realise that we have sort of captured everything that is needed to tell the story.
And it really felt like the spirits of Noel Coward, all of them were there. You know, I feel like we've had a lot of cheerleaders in the wings, all these theatrical people, David Lean, so, you know, all of them, and the whole cast. And actually to be able to sit there in the refreshment room and tell the story, the start, middle and the end, at such an iconic setting and venue, I think that was probably the highlight, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Now, out of all the people you've collaborated with whilst filming this, who was the most informative? Well, there hasn't been the two key people we collaborated with.
Yeah, Helen Friel and Anthony Pratt. I think without their contribution, I don't know if I know how this film would have panned out, because to have those two tangible things of Anthony knowing Cyril and the diaries that he touched and wrote in really make this much more special.
I think the other thing that's been interesting is that as a journalist and a documentary maker in more mainstream and telling other people's stories, we had ideas about, should we ask experts, we did reach out to different people, and we just didn't get any replies. And then I realised a friend of mine who's a journalist said, this is your personal family story, and that is how it has to start. So in some ways, this is the starting point. If to keep control of it, I realised that I'd asked a very well-known filmmaker friend of mine if she was interested, and people will say, oh, lovely story. But if we'd given it away, I think we would have given away the essence of this story. And it was really important that we started off with a documentary revealing this untold story.
Definitely. What is the most surprising thing you've uncovered on this project? I think there's been many discoveries over the years that have led us to this point. But I think for me, when Mary Davis brought those papers over from America that used to be in Pear Tree Cottage, made their way to America and then found their way back to you, it was just amazing to read all the I don't want to give too much away, but it was amazing to read the information that was there, and the photographs of Janet and her handwritten letters and things. It was just, yeah, that was the most amazing part for me.
And I think also it's funny seeing yourself in your relatives. So I think Mary and I, there was some familiarity, like you could sort of see something in that family thing. And then, in fact, somebody today said to me, because they've got the poster and they're going to come to the film, oh, I looked up Cyril Raymond and I can really see the resemblance. So it's funny, that connection to the family becomes real, especially sort of seeing the relatives. And we never thought that would happen.
No.
And although Mary, who hasn't been very well, but she is getting better, I'm glad to say, and will be coming over next year, hopefully to a screening, perhaps the one in London. But we've got the other family member, haven't we, coming to the screening?
Yes, so Lindsay's coming over from Vienna, and to see all of her research come to life, basically.
Yeah, come to fruition.
Which is great. What's the next one?
Now, the next one is, what do you consider the starting point for the project? When my mother gave me that box of letters, I think I felt the weight of responsibility. And as I said earlier, I'm really conscientious and I do finish things. I'm not somebody who'll say I'll do something and not do it. And it was frustrating over the years somehow that, you know, whatever we were doing was sort of, it didn't quite come to anything. But I now know timing, as they say, is absolutely everything. And this is the perfect time to tell this story.
Yeah. What challenges have you faced? So what challenges have you faced? Many. I think a two-person crew has been the most challenging part of this. It's not just stick a camera on a tripod and press record and talk in front of the camera. There's so much more to it. From my perspective, it's the sound, the light. Is everything working correctly? Is there anything in the background that shouldn't be in the background? You know, there are so many elements to it, which was quite stressful at times. And I know for you it's not been easy either.
Well, it's just been, it's not, luckily I'm not a perfectionist and I'm very real. And I think in my work as a journalist, helping people to find their voice or whatever, and as a voice coach, I'm all about be real and be yourself and everything else. But it was just a monumental thing to do. I think we actually looked up how many people would you normally work with to make a 60-minute documentary? Minimum of about 20. And here we are, we never thought about the PR and the screenings and the leaflets, and I've been running around handing out, I mean, honestly, coercing people into the cinema, to be honest. Just come with me to the box office and book a ticket. But it's been huge. There's so much more to it, as Luke says, than just, standing in front of a camera or shooting, you know, beautiful landscape. It's everything.
Yeah, yeah.
But we hope you'll be pleased with the results.
What's next?
And what is your biggest dream for this documentary? I think I said famously to Luke, that's it, when this is done, that's it, that's my journey with this story done, sort of thing. But of course, that's not necessarily true, because what we've decided we're going to do is once we've got the screenings, next year we'll have more screenings, possibly film festivals.
Yeah.
And definitely finish the book. I think it'll mean more because the story's out there. So we're going to do the book. Luckily, my lovely trusted colleague here, who's very good at the kind of we just do match up well with our skills there, don't we? I like the overarching story and the human thing, and you're very good at making sure that everything fits into place and all the documents. So we've got so much research material, we can actually put the book together with lots of photographs and documents.
Yeah.
Sedona has been working on a one-woman show about her grandmother Janet, and she, trained went to Lambda, but she also did circus school. So I think we can look forward to her. I think she's going to preview in Bath next year sometime, doing a one-woman show as a kind of homage, really, to her grandmother or to her theatrical ancestors. And people have always said to me, oh my God, this would make an amazing film. Yes, it would. But I realised that this was the starting point, that maybe garnering a bit of interest, who knows what will come out of it. I feel like a film will come out of it, but I actually think it's really important that we keep the family involvement with this, that we don't just give it away. Would Netflix want it? You never know.
Who knows?
But I think we will definitely be involved in whatever capacity.
It's just
as
the
a
beginning.
family. It's just the beginning.
So that's all the questions we collected, but I believe we've had some live questions. Ooh. Or maybe just one. Oops.
Throwing a bit of paper around.
What have we got? Did you meet any resistance from any relatives or
any relatives of either party
in telling this story?
That's a very good question, actually, because I think that came around Anthony Pratt. There was no resistance, but I do remember when I met him, I think he found out in a bit of a dramatic way that he had, what would my dad have been? I can't work out the relationship. But anyway, Cyril had another son. I think he must have been really shocked and horrified, not in a kind of prudish way, it's just a shock. He had no idea. And I went to meet him at Waterstones in Piccadilly many years ago, and I thought he was a lovely man, but I remember I'm quite sort of sensitive, and I remember sort of tuning in thinking, I think he's absolutely horrified that this beloved uncle had this love child, and there's a whole other family involved here. And that was the big challenge. But I said to Luke at one point, I don't think we should, do we go back and ask Anthony to be interviewed? I was really, really not sure. And then again, a sort of moment where we found the letter in the box, and he's been nothing but, he's such a heart-centered, lovely man. You could probably see that already. Yeah. And he's been so sensitive about my father. He just said, oh, that poor boy, this is terrible, but I just want you to know that Cyril was a wonderful, wonderful man. So he's been such an important part of this story, and I'm so glad. Again, the fates intervened, and I found that letter, and we just decided to contact him because, and I think he's been delighted to be able to tell this part of the story.
Yeah, and also over the last few months, he's been sending us more and more photographs and content for us to use. So that's been really, really good.
Really special. And also the fact that it's coming to London, that means he can see it. He was a very humble man, and my experience of often people who are really good at what they do are so self-deprecating, but he was absolutely charming and everything. And he didn't know much about my uncle, but he knew a lot about Cyril. He's been nothing but 110% supportive.
Yeah, really good.
Thank you. That was a great question because that was probably the most sensitive challenge we faced.
Yeah. Wow, I think that's a wrap.
That's right. You're probably sick of us chatting away here. Time to go. Thank you so much for being on this journey with us, because the money that we raised has really helped with our expenses. I guess we just went into it blindly. We were just going to have to make it whatever happened. But that's meant that your money has helped pay for our travel expenses and also to get the film accredited I have to say these things are very expensive.
They are.
And we're even having to sort of, obviously pay for the film Brief Encounter.
Yeah.
So people coming along to the cinema, we're doing a sort of split share, aren't we, with the cinema? But that means that we can recoup some of our costs, which is really helpful. And I think sort of gives us the impetus to keep going, to keep telling the story in a different way. But first things first, I hope you really enjoy the film. I hope it really lands and you find it as meaningful as we did making it.
Thank you.
Thank you.